Electrocast.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch has finally landed on Disney+. Now you can watch the global phenomenon at home with your Ohana.
Be good for 1 second.
Lilo & Stitch is verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 93%.
Perfect.
Stitch is also cute and fluffy.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch, rated PG, now streaming on Disney+. And right now, you can get Disney+, Hulu, and all of ESPN with an incredible limited-time offer. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by FXX and Hulu. An all-new season of Futurama is back, blending heartfelt moments with razor-sharp humor while accidentally saving the day. The Planet Express crew is back, defying gravity and common sense. From the creator of The Simpsons comes 10 new episodes where the romance is hotter, the threats are bigger, and the action hits harder. Don't miss the all-new season of Futurama. Watch it Mondays on FXX or stream it on Hulu.
Iris, 5 years ago, I mentioned this Icelandic lost version of Dracula. Whatever happened with that?
It sent me down the biggest rabbit hole of my personal and professional life. Find out more in the new podcast, The Powers of Darkness from orwhatevermovies.
Coming October 2025.
I know what you are.
Say it.
Vampire.
Nosferatu. These creatures do not die, but instead grow strong, feeding on the blood of the living.
Border winters. Try to hide. They're coming.
Welcome to Vampire Month with Wesley and Iris.
Good morning. You're listening to NPR. This is Or Whatever Movies. I'm your host, Wesley. And today I'm very excited, as you can tell by my modulated voice, to have as a guest an expert in Nordic vampire movies, specifically Nordic Dracula variations. Her name is Iris. Iris, can you hear me?
Yes, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be discussing one Nordic vampire film in particular. Maybe you've seen it. I'm hoping we can chat a little bit about its virtues, any of its drawbacks. It's called Lot den Rat komma in. Have you seen this movie?
Yes, Wes. I've seen the English language translation, not to be mistaken with the English language adaptation, of Let the Right One In. First off, let me just say, long-time listener, first-time guest, really happy to be here. And thank you for the kind and warm introduction. I am an expert on Nordic vampire adaptations, and I'm looking forward to this discussion on Let the Right One In.
And we're very excited to have you, as you can tell by my enthusiastic tone. Let the Right One In, as it's called here in America, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, is actually a double adaptation. First, the novel, also titled Let the Right One In, translated, was adapted to a movie, and then that movie was adapted to an American version.
That's right.
Have you seen both of them?
I've seen both, and you've read the book.
Yes, very important to keep up to speed. I enjoy a good book on a cold Swedish winter morning, and it took several of them to cover this long-ass book. I've noticed a trend. I wonder if you've noticed the same in Swedish literature, having read maybe 1 1/2 Swedish books by now. Have you noticed that a character will be introduced? We will delve deeply into that character's backstory, motivations, emotional thrust, regrets from childhood, and how that relates to his associations with people that are important in his life. He'll be pondering these things in a diner, let's say, and then will get up, determined to change his or her life, step outside into the brisk Swedish air, and immediately be killed by a vampire, thus ending his or her story immediately?
I believe you are referring to the character Hakan?
I recently heard our director pronounce that name in Swedish, which I pronounced as Hakan as well during the reading of Let the Right One In. He pronounced it Horgun. Horgun, like whore, and then kun, almost like gun. Horgun.
Horgun. Are you saying that the character Horgun is an archetype of sorts? How long do you think Horkun was supporting Ellie. I assumed it was 9 years, but that's just silly.
Well, there's tenderness in the movie. He smiles lovingly when she strokes his face. He's obviously jealous of her interaction with Oskar. You know, maybe he's just her familiar or guardian or both of those things. But in the book, he's much more of a child-interested individual for personal pleasure purposes.
What? They have a relationship?
He very much wants that, and he seeks out other children, particularly young boys, for relationships. It's probable that he is in love with her, and there's speculation or maybe even suggested that he could have been Oscar's age when he first met Ellie. Ellie fell for her and has been her familiar ever since.
Wow. But it's not specified in the novel.
Not specified directly how long he's been with her, but his relationship is more sexually charged.
Interesting, because he does have a fatherly vibe about him in the Swedish film version, Let the Right One In. I didn't see the jealousy piece, but I can see why you saw that, having read the novel and seeing that his character was sexually motivated or sexually charged. My follow-up question was going to be, does he genuinely care for her, or is he simply under her spell? And it sounds like in the book, he's not under some kind of trance or vampiric spell.
He's definitely hooked. I found it strange that the jar of acid, which he conveniently had at hand, was not convenient. He spilled it on the jacket. That's how we could tell that it was sulfuric acid, presumably. But he had that prepared and was holding up the jar and talking about it to her, saying, "People have seen my face. People know that I live here with you," and was thus preparing that acid for the eventuality of pouring it over his face. If that's not being committed and under some kind of spell where he understands that he has to engage in precarious behavior, dangerous, self-harming behavior, just so she can drink blood and doesn't have to kill people on her own and then cry about it while straddling the dead body, that's she's got him pretty well wrapped around her finger.
And how had he successfully avoided anyone seeing his face or seeing them together in the past? Like, what was it about this time where he slipped up and now he has to punish himself Dobby style? Like, what's the deal? Was this a unique situation? And did it call for such drastic action? I mean, couldn't he simply just wear a hat and some sunglasses?
He was a bumbler from the very beginning. He couldn't shoo the dog away. He ran away, and Kelly Ray was like, "No, wait, you forgot the blood." Like, he didn't, I don't think, did he ever successfully kill someone?
No, he bungled everything and then would flog himself afterward for being so dumb. That's a pretty vicious cycle.
Yeah, he was dumb. He was the Violin Bee killer in the novel whose spree went on for a long time. He killed lots and lots of people, gained a reputation, and so that was why he disfigured himself, because any capture and recognition or identification would lead somebody to Ellie, which was all he was trying to avoid. He got away with a lot. I was shocked by how quickly he was dispatched in this movie. He messed up one, and then he put himself in a situation with no exit. With the kid who he didn't kill, I guess the blood has to be super fresh, but the kid saw a person through the window and thought it was Mateo or whatever. And then the other kid was already banging on the door. There was nowhere for him to go because he's dumb.
Like, so much nowhere to go that he had to cower in the next room?
Yep. And did not pour the acid until he realized he had no other choice. They were in the room.
And so I found him to be a fairly sympathetic character. I mean, I say that very loosely, but is he sympathetic at all in the novel?
No, he's actually much worse.
Like, he's more of a villain, or he's more of a bungler?
Any tenderness that he has for Ellie is super creep, and he's actively seeking young boys and torturing young boys and stuff. So not intended to be even a father-like figure. He's a desperate creep.
Ew. Isn't Dragon Tattoo also Swedish?
Yeah. The Swedes are freaks.
I was about to say, I mean, it's a small sample to make that kind of extrapolation, but both pretty dark, pretty freaky movies and books.
Would you call them gothic? In the conventional sense, the modern sense?
I was about to say, not in the conventional Victorian sense, but in the contemporary sense, yeah, for sure.
It occurred to me that Oskar in this movie is a pretty dark and yet sensitive kid. He's pretty goth with his knives and his knife clippings from papers and his murder clippings. But his gothiness is betrayed by his shockingly yellow shock of hair.
Betrayed?
Yeah, he doesn't look goth because he's so blonde. He's like the Tom York of rural Sweden.
Yeah, you're right. He's a pretty goth little kid. I wouldn't say he's betrayed by his sunny appearance. Is he described that way in the novel, or was the actor who played Oskar simply just the best kid for the job?
He was a beautiful little boy. I don't recall much of a description of Oskar at all in the book.
He's a cute little kid. He's got some Charlie from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory vibes about him. And the whole time I'm just bummed for him that there's no good thing that can come from his relationship with Ellie. And then there is, kind of, if you can call a mass murder of children a good thing. I can't call that a good thing. There's nothing good that comes from a relationship with Ellie. But I have to say, I remember Let the Right One In being a lot scarier than this viewing.
Regarded as one of the best vampire movies anywhere in the world in any language, and even maybe the scariest, I have to take this opportunity to shout out our sponsor. Kelly Ray has requested a shout out specifically for me to acknowledge how much she loves me, because I took her, against her will mostly, to see Weapons. Then we got home, immediately finished this book because it had been a long time since we started it together, and then asked her to watch Let the Right One In, to which she agreed, with the stipulation that I have to shout out how much she loves me, that she was committing to not one but 2 horror movies in one day. And I was like, really? Was it so bad? And I don't think it was, because while there was some gore, otherwise a pretty quiet, understated movie. It's a lot about their friendship, their relationship, so much so that you'll maybe be shocked to learn that she was like, why don't you watch it with your mom or something? Like, I have to watch it again. And I was like, because we need to discuss it. So yesterday I sat mom down, having just vetted it with an eye to her sensibilities and her sensitivities, and had mom watch Let the Right One In.
Wow. And how did that go?
She watched it through her fingers. She kept turning around, like turning her head all the way over her shoulder during the gorier bits. And when that happens to mom, then she's not reading the subtitles, right? And so if she's not reading the subtitles and her head is turned, no part of her is watching this movie. And I was like, you're missing it. And she would turn around. And then at one point she got up. And she looked over, like looking out the window for the cat. And I was like, what are you doing? And I paused the movie. And she's like, I got to get these flies. And there were 3 flies on the screen door. And she shut the glass door and was like banging on the door to get the flies to fly away. And then she came back to the movie and was like, okay, I'm ready. And then afterwards, I said, how was it? And she said, terrible. And I said, it wasn't that bad as vampire movies go. And she said, it was better than some of the other ones. I don't feel like this movie is scary, but that is maybe because by now you and Kelly Ray, you are more seasoned horror veterans.
Well, it certainly is the case in some way or another that the movie hasn't changed, but I certainly have over the 10 years or so that it's been since I've watched it. I do also want to acknowledge Kelly, because that is love. I mean, that's a lot to ask of, I think, kind of just anyone in one weekend, let alone, was it a day, you said?
Yep.
But also I wanted to shout out to Kelly because she was a supporter of the Powers of Darkness Kickstarter campaign, which is fully funded.
Wow. A shameless plug, but I will allow it. Congratulations. Now introduce the stretch goals to encourage people still to donate. Just because you've reached your goal doesn't mean there's still not opportunities to invest. Check out the goal at Kickstarter Powers of Darkness. Powers of Darkness is the reason that we're in the middle of Vampire Month
2025 at an NPR. Is it weird to be on the side of the vampire or the vampire familiar or the vampire friend? It's weird because we are on Oscar's side. He is our main character. And yet what Ellie does on his behalf is awful. That appears to be a purposeful justification. Is there any additional information as to how we're supposed to feel about this from the original source material?
Well, the bullying was really involved, but pretty well represented, given that the novelist was the writer of the screenplay for the Swedish Let the Right One In. But I will answer your question with a question. Did those kids deserve to die?
I think that's an easy one. No. Does the bullying need to stop? Yes. Was this a case of self-defense? Is it possible? It seemed very possible that the older brother was going to kill Oskar in a Stand By Me, Kiefer Sutherland kind of way, where you have to take matters into your own hands, drastic measures, to stop what is essentially going to be a very adult crime.
He was just going to poke out his eye. It would have made him look tougher.
Are you allowed to kill somebody if they're trying to poke out your eye? Child or not?
I believe so. I asked Mom, did those kids deserve to die? And with a gleeful smile, she readily agreed that they deserved to die.
Wow. Even the kids who were like, Johnny, he's had enough. They deserve to die?
I'll decide when he's had enough, man.
This podcast is supported by FX's English Teacher. Last year's critically acclaimed series returns to follow Evan, Gwen, and Marky as they vie for their students' divided attention. See why Cosmopolitan called its premiere season a masterclass of comedy, while Glamour raved it's the year's funniest and most heartwarming new comedy series. FX's English Teacher returns September 25th on FX. All episodes streaming on Hulu.
Tonight, turn down the noise of the day and focus on the rest with AGZ, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. New from AG1. AGZ supports your body's natural sleep cycle with clinically studied key herbs, adaptogens, and minerals in amounts supported by research. And no melatonin, helping you wake feeling rested. Wind down, rest up with AGZ. Learn more at drinkagz.com.
What is wrong with you, Johnny? Enemy deserves no mercy.
By the way, another milestone. I watched Karate Kid with the girls this past weekend.
Wow.
It was awesome.
But nobody sides with the Cobra Kai. It's not like they're going to get their own show or anything. But as far as this is concerned, the director said that he viewed the ending as a happy one. But is it happy? Is Oskar just destined to be the next Horgun? He left his mom at the tender age of, 12 years old? And is traveling with a vampire? No good can come of it.
The future's not looking bright for poor Oskar. And yes, the parents are pretty hapless. I think probably one of the most emotionally poignant moments of the movie was when Oscar's dad's friend comes over for a drink. And then they just proceed to get sloshed at the table all sad-like with Oskar just sitting there. That's a really sad moment. He's all sledding.
Didn't his dad get up to go get something or get a game or something or get a drink for him and then stopped and was like, oh, Bob is here or whatever. It's time to just get all drunk.
They were he's all sledding on the frozen lake and having a nice meal together in their little sweaters. And you're all happy for Oskar. And you're like, oh, there's hope yet. And then the friend comes over for the sad party and you're like, wow, this sucks. Poor Oskar. And that was the moment where I felt like I knew things weren't going to go well. That Oskar has a pretty big hole dug for him. And I don't think he's going to get out of it.
I don't think Oskar had any friends.
No.
It seemed like he had always been out of step with other people, has never fit in, kind of turned inward and he wasn't antisocial, but he was probably a goth sideline little kid neglected by his parents. And then Ellie comes along and says, Oskar, fight back. Fight back. I'm here. I will help you. I really like you, Oskar. And do you like me? And all this stuff. And hugs him and thanks him and smooches him and stuff. To Oskar, Ellie is his true companion. kind of locking him into a 12-year-old mindset, as apparently Ellie has been for 200 years. She is 12, but she has been 12 for a long time. But it seems like in this world, she doesn't progress like Claudia does in Interview with the Vampire. Spoiler. She still has a 12-year-old mindset where 12-year-old Oskar is the perfect companion. She has memories that he doesn't have and thus some experience, but doesn't know how to parlay that into wisdom that changes. She just knows when she gets in trouble, she has to go, has to keep moving. And maybe it wouldn't be so terrible if Oskar could come along and she could be with him forever, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing for Oskar, who's going to continue to grow.
This brings me to the title. Any insight on Let the Right One In? Is this a cautionary tale about the friends that you make and how these early friendships that potentially last a lifetime shape your life?
A leading question, but you're the expert. I would say yes. Obviously, the vampire convention that they're not allowed in unless you invite them. If you're going to do so, let the right one in.
Right? One of the scariest and goriest moments of the movie when she steps across that threshold uninvited.
Shocking, but she does it and demonstrates to him her vulnerability. She is caring, affectionate, insightful. She's loving to Oskar in a way that no one has ever been. That Horgun wanted to be with her and she had no interest. She felt bad for him, was like, hey, let me bite you to take the edge off before I throw you 7 stories where you go crashing off the thing, Titanic style.
They had to make it look like an accident, Anatomy of a Fall style.
Sure.
Our discussion for which is available at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts.
As is Karate Kid. So she's open to him and vulnerable. And Oskar is just a bundle of nerves. Like, he's nothing if not vulnerable. You can see his sad little face. Even though he doesn't outwardly demonstrate his fear, he just, when he's defiant, when he's annoyed with her for stealing money, for killing people, you can see it on his face. But she's just like, okay, I will be open with you and reveal my weakness. And she is his sort of only outlet. This is a movie that is about love and, you know, attraction and all that kind of stuff. But it's a kid's idea of love and romance, which just constitutes companionship. As vampire movies go, a pretty small movie, but there are glimpses of the novel, which is much more extensive. Did you realize, I did not until this viewing when Kelly pointed it out, that Ellie was portrayed by 4 different people?
What do you mean?
Lena Leanderson was the main actress, but she sounded a little bit too babyish. So they had someone come in and give her voice. Elif Ceylan, sorry if that's a mispronunciation, had a deeper, less feminine voice, sort of highlighting that Ellie was an ancient vampire. That's 2. Obviously, she had a stunt double for certain scenes. That's 3. And then when he glimpsed her real self, immediately after the blood scene where she comes through the door uninvited, she says, be me for a while, Oskar. And you see that kind of haggard look she has. Kelly's like, that's a different person. And I was like, no, it's not. That's just, she's in makeup. And she's like, no, dude, that's a different person. And it was. Her name is Suzanne Rubin. She was the aged Ellie, to show that Ellie is actually 200 years old, trapped in a 12-year-old's body.
Wow. I didn't notice the shift was subtle enough, but also I remember being very unsettled by Ellie in that moment. There's something weird going on where you continue to mix up her pronoun. Like, is she a he in the novel?
Spoiler, definitely a boy. And she says multiple times, I'm not a girl. Oskar, would you still like me if I wasn't a girl? And obviously you think that she's referring to the fact that she's a vampire. And he's like, I guess so. Why not? You can see that glimpse when Oskar peeks in and spies on her. You can see the scar where her penis used to be.
Yes. What? That's why she had a weird vag?
Yeah, she, takes off her clothes for seemingly no reason. And it reads as this is kids exploring what sexy time is like in their, unformed minds.
Right.
But it just was about vulnerability, and he got to see kind of all the different sides of her, even if she wasn't willing to reveal it right up front.
Whoa.
And Oskar kind of did the same, she saw him with the knife and being his freaky goth self. Did you know Oskar was played by a different person?
When?
He was actually played by Viola Davis. And you can only tell when he gets super snotty, which happens pretty much consistently.
It's freezing.
That's what I said. But Kelly's like, it's eking me out a little bit. Because he was always snot-faced. She's like, blow your nose, kid. Wipe your nose. Do you know what wigs me out about Oskar a little bit?
The bangs?
I would have said it was the hair, but it's not. He has just kind of He-Man hair, and it's it looked funny a long time ago. This film was set in 1982, but for 1982, that was pretty spot on.
He-Man is vaguely Nordic, like Vikingish.
Right. But what wigs me out was when he kept opening his mouth in the swimming pool. I was like, stop doing that. That's gross, kid. It was distracting and weird.
Yeah, he does like that. I wonder if that was just a tick of the actor. That's not scripted, right?
Definitely not scripted, I don't think. Drawbacks for Let the Right One In. It definitely hits the diversity component for Or Whatever Movies' Vampire Month.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that the mystery subplot is not factoring into this discussion. Maybe it is because this idea that the adults in this movie are kind of non-entities or non-issues. But this little group of friends is traumatized by Yoke. Which one dies? Is it Laki or is it...
It's Laki is the friend. Gosta
it's the
is
one...
the cat guy.
Oh.
And they see Yuka die under the bridge.
Yeah. Where, he's just trying to help a little kid in need.
That's where she drew some blood.
Right. And then there's the whole mystery, and for some reason, Lake is so mean to Virginia, and then Virginia spontaneously combusts. I guess it's not spontaneous because it's sunlight related.
Self-immolates, though, which ties this to a conventional vampire story. So it's not just the rules that Ellie is forced to play by, but we see how it pans out for someone else. The adults were a big component in the novel and contributed to how long it was. But for this movie, I was a little bit annoyed. They seemed so apart from the story. I just want to be with Oskar again and with Ellie again. That was kind of all that mattered for, the movie's presentation purposes.
Yeah, I guess they serve more of a functional than an emotional purpose in the film, although what happens to them is pretty devastating. Their purpose is to disrupt Ellie's little thing that she's got going on so that she has to move on, and then Oskar gets to make the choice, leaving Las Vegas style, to be with her or not.
Also, check out that review, orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. I'm going to argue they were also there as murder fodder because Ellie needs someone to kill.
That's right.
And once Horgun is gone, she got to do the death drop on Virginia, which was horrific. And the head twist on Yuka.
It was a very gentle head twist.
But also well done. She cranks that dummy's head and you see the actual arms of the actor fly up and like the nerves spasm. Pretty graphic movie. Mom was put off by the physical violence, by the blood, by the gore. She couldn't even watch the lizard tongue lapping up Oscar's blood through Ellie's hair on the floor. It was maybe a lot.
Boy, basically, Let the Right One In is marking my realization moment that I am really jaded and hardened to this stuff. This is what you've done to me, Wes. Started with you tying me to chairs, and now I just do it willingly. Talk about being under vampire spell.
This is research. Vampire Month, all in preparation for the imminent release of Powers of Darkness, a long gestating project for which we are all very proud of you. I sat Mom down to watch this because I figured this was a different vampire movie and slower than some of the others. More focused on the kids and their friendship, their relationship, and she was pretty horrified. And after it was done, I said, "So, are you ready to watch the American version?" And she was like, "No."
We'll watch that tomorrow. I'm sure as shit not watching it by myself. And I was like, so is this Vampire Week? And she said, I guess so. Let's get it over with.
Maybe Vampire Weekend?
A different sort of vampire movie, and explores maybe what The Lost Boys was supposed to be, but they're very young. And this is so much more emotional about a kid who is looking for companionship, looking to belong, I guess, and acting out, and he meets the person who has to act out, and as a result is isolated from everyone else, you know? A strong inclusion for Vampire Month.
This is a serious movie.
I wouldn't say that either of these kids delivered landmark performances. They didn't go on to do anything else, really, after Let the Right One In. And when anyone asked Lena Lee Anderson about her experience, she doesn't remember a lot. She remembers it was fun and not a big deal. She's like, sorry to be boring, but I remember they would pick me up and take me to the set, and it was very cold, and they would tell me to do stuff, and then I would do it. And that was it. She never expected it to be a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, everyone, it seems, knows this movie, and I think for good reasons. It's quiet and understated, and there's an element of dread to those horrific Swedish apartment blocks in the middle of nowhere. No city lights or anything. It has the themes, and there's enough if you dig for it, but otherwise it's a touching, beautiful little story, you know, with sort of the horrific implications around the edges. Theirs is an idyllic world and friendship that's maybe going to be torn apart or necessitates his leaving because it's transient, because it's non-sustainable. Because in order to get to sustain her life, she has to kill or have someone kill for her. And as we've learned in movies like The Hunt, you can't do stuff like that in small towns. Everybody knows everybody.
Our discussion for which is available at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. I mean, pretty good. This is tough. It's a pretty good and diverse offering for Vampire Month. It's hard, but I think that Let the Right One In is a good capper and a good way to segue into Halloween at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts.
Halloween, my favorite time. This is kind of The Cure movie.
A what?
The Cure.
A Cure movie?
It's just Oskar and Ellie together, shutting out the rest of the world, you know, up all night.
Robert Smith hair.
Trying to find a connection, and stuff's going wrong all over the place. But there's love, and love is all you need. That's not The Cure. That's the Beatles.
I was going to say, we're mixing music metaphors here in the closeout of the episode of Let the Right One In. We hope you enjoyed this discussion on Let the Right One In, as well as our discussions on Sinners, The Lost Boys, and Dusk Till Dawn for Vampire Month 2025 at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com is how you let us know that you love Vampire Month. Thank you for listening. And what's a good vampire send-off, Wes?
We hope you don't think any of the movies we chose were blah.
Terrible. It was terrible.
You deserve better health care, and so do we all. Medicine in America is a podcast that shares real stories of patients and doctors reshaping the future, because the revolution in care isn't coming, it's already here. Real stories, real change, a better future for healthcare.
Electricast. Hi, it's me, Flo. Remember me from Ghost Hampton, the podcast? I was secretly in love with Lyle Hall. Well, now I'm dead and loving it. But let's talk about you. If you loved listening to Ghost Hampton, you can now spend the summer in the Hamptons. The original episodes are back, and now new episodes will be dropping every Friday. I may drop in too, just to make Lyle feel guilty. Ghost Hampton, the podcast, is now streaming everywhere.
Electricast.